Hello and welcome to another video. In this video we're going to talk about Michael Thornton. Michael Thornton was a journalist that snubbed Ronnie Krae's advances one night at Esmeralda's barn. Michael Thornton had been out that evening with Ronnie Krae and Lord Boothby at the Society restaurant, and they had moved on afterwards to the Twins Club, Esmeralda's barn. According to Thornton, Reggie had to step in later in the evening to calm things down after Ronnie tried to make advances towards Thornton. Ronnie wanted Thornton to go home with him and wouldn't take no for an answer. Lord Boothby, who was still with Ronnie and Thornton, had joined them at Esmeralda's barn and had taken a fancy to a young man that was in Ronnie's company that evening, and he didn't want anything to upset any plans that he had for the young man, meaning that Boothby was hoping to take him home. So seeing that Thornton was not interested in going home with Ronnie, Boothby said, "Just play along, he's not a man to offend." Diana Dawes, who was also in the club that night, also chipped in. She said, "Baby cakes, you're dicing with death here, don't get stroppy with him for God's sake." Reggie took Thornton to one side and said, "Listen, when Ron likes a lad, he would give him anything he wants. You could have a car, a flat, or money." Thornton said thanks, but no thanks. Then Reggie said, "Well, if you don't fancy Ron, I can look after you. You know, make things okay." I'm not too sure what Reggie means by this. Does he mean he would like to sleep with Thornton, or does he mean he will take care of Thornton in another way? Something a bit violent. I'm not too sure what Reggie means there. Thornton said it was unmistakable what Reggie meant, but I'm not sure about it. Maybe I'm missing something, but you're welcome to let me know in the comments if you know what Reggie means. It was at this point that Michael Thornton decided to leave Esmeralda's barn, and he says with eyes bulging, Ronnie Krae followed him and pulled a gun on him in the corridor by the exit of the club. This is the point where Reggie stepped in and told Thornton to clear off, which Michael Thornton duly did. This was supposed to have happened in May 1964, and this was right before the Boothby scandal erupted in July of that year. What's interesting about this story though is that Thornton was assaulted about a year later in July 1965. He was walking back to his house in Bryston Mews East in Marylebone with both his hands full of shopping bags, and he was grabbed from behind and an arm was put round his throat and something hard and sharp was smashed into his forehead. Thornton fell forward with blood spurting out onto the cobblestones. He was then kicked in the head and body, and an East End voice said, "That will teach you to show some respect to Ronnie Krae." This is Bryston Mews East in Marylebone, so this is where the assault took place. Michael Thornton was taken to Paddington General Hospital, where he was found to have a broken nose, a cracked cheekbone, severe bruising, and a gash on his forehead that required 22 stitches. Years later, Thornton said, "I survived the Kraes, though some would say I was lucky to do so. But sometimes in the dead of night, my sleep is still haunted by Ronnie Krae's glassy-eyed, dead-looking, malevolent stare, the expression of complete terrifying madness." From what I can gather, Michael Thornton did have phone calls from Ronnie Krae and Lord Boothby during the gap of a year between the Esmeralda's barn fiasco and the assault a year later in July 1965, but he did ignore these phone calls. But for Michael Thornton to be tracked down and assaulted a year later shows how much Ronnie Krae would hold a grudge if you crossed him. I think the twins' friend Johnny Squibb said in a documentary once that if you upset Ronnie, he would come looking for you.
You wouldn't insult Ronnie. You wouldn't say one word about Ronnie. Because if he heard of it, he would come looking for you, yeah.
And while it wasn't Ronnie Kray that came looking for Thornton, he certainly must have brooded on what happened at Esmeralda's barn that night, and he got someone to go and deal with Thornton 1 year later. A similar thing happened to David Litvinov, a friend of Ronnie's and Ronnie's boyfriend Bobby Buckley's ex-lover. Litvinov was tracked down and slashed across the face, scarring him with a sort of a Joker's smile. I'm not sure what Litvinov done to upset Ronnie, but they fell out, so Litvinov had to be sorted out by an unknown assailant. It is depicted in the 1990 film The Krays as being done by Ronnie with a sword in an alleyway outside the Twins club, but it was not Ronnie that done it, but more than likely it was ordered by Ronnie. Although it's possible that Litvinov could have upset other people, it's a coincidence that he fell out with Ronnie and then was slashed across the face. According to the Twins' associate Mickey Fawcett, David Litvinov used to call Ronnie Bottlenose. David Litvinov later committed suicide in the 1970s with an overdose of pills. David Litvinov straddled two worlds in the 1960s, the upmarket Chelsea set and the villainy world of the East End. David Litvinov also had a hand in the film Performance starring Mick Jagger. Litvinov was a technical advisor and dialogue coach, so he would have had plenty to advise regarding the Twins and especially about Ronnie and the world of East End crime. So the film would have been inspired by the Twins. I think it was filmed in 1968 and released in 1970. It said that James Fox, who also starred in the film, met Ronnie Kray for research purposes while the Twins were being held at Brixton on remand in 1968. Actor and villain John Bindon was also in Performance. He played a character called Moody. I might do a video at some point on John Bindon, so I won't say too much about him here. So that's about it for this video. It's only a short one, but I thought it was worth making about the journalist Michael Thornton and his run-in with Ronnie Kray in May 1964, and then his assault a year later by an unknown assailant. It does go to show that if you upset Ronnie Kray, he would have held a grudge against you and either came looking for you himself or he would send somebody else. It seems that the snub of Ronnie Kray's sexual advances on Michael Thornton really upset Ronnie, and he must have brooded on it for quite some time. Before I go, I will tell you about a couple of Facebook groups I'm in. The first is the Krays Crime Lords of London group. It's dedicated to mainly the Krays, as the title suggests. It's a friendly group and ran by my good friend Billy, and it has pictures and discussions going on. The other group is Gangland Gangster Media, a very large group and very well known on Facebook. It's more focused on the wider world of true crime. Links to both groups will be in the description. I'm in both groups and I'm a moderator in the Krays one, so you're all welcome to come and have a look. So that's about it for this video. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I will see you again in the next one.